All right. So, welcome again back to Rewiring Health. And I'm so excited to be joined by Martina Gallo. She is an aspiring wellness coach and she has an amazing story. And we're going to jump right into it today. And I can't wait to hear everything that you have to share. So, welcome.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. I waited for this moment so much, so long. And yeah, I'm so ready about it. And I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yes. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing some of what you have to share and hear your story. So let's jump right into that. Do you mind just sharing your story, kind of like where you came from and what kind of brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So, well, first of all, I am, yeah, as you said, Martina. I'm 24 years old, and basically, I've struggled with eating disorders for over a decade. And so, my history with eating disorders began at the age of 13, basically, yeah, 13 or 14. And before basically being aware of my body, of my presence in the world in general, I was a really like playful and carefree child. I didn't really pay attention to how I looked, and I would have fun with the smallest things and with everyone basically. I was definitely not the skinniest girl of the world. I was definitely, a little bit chubby, but like in a nice way, in a positive way, not like in a chubby, like as I was unhealthy. And that's like a very important point because being chubby, being a little bit, bigger than the girls that are around you doesn't mean that you are not healthy. And this was basically one of the first lessons that I basically understood when I recovered, because uh, people would always tell me that I was not healthy because of my body. And this was starting with my pediatrician, with my parents, with relatives, a lot of relatives of mine, a lot of, my aunts, my uncles. They will always, pick my physical appearance as something, to be I don't know, like to be scared, not scared of, sorry, but to be concerned about, yeah, as if it was something that was affecting my health. And people, will start telling me this. Also, like my friends will tell me this, and this kind of got inside my mind and thought, okay, maybe that's true, maybe I'm not healthy and I'm not worthy of love. Because basically when you are so young, you kind of mix being like a good person with looking good. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like because you don't have like this huge self
Mhm.
inside of you. You don't have this sense of self that is strong, that is powerful. You are basically just what other people are telling you. So if people are telling you you are ugly, you are fat, and you are this and you are that, you become that because you don't have like a huge sense of self. And so people will always tell me, we have to get rid of that fatness, we have to um, lose some weight, we have to do some more physical exercise. And I started to believe those things. And these episodes had such an impact on myself that I actually still remember those episodes. Like they are still clear in my mind, and they are so like as if they happened yesterday. And that tells like that explains how your mind is able to store things if they have been painful for you. So also like you also deal with the pain, like how your body remembers the pain. And it's also connected because also your mind knows how to store pain. And probably the most painful things are the things that your brain remembers the most, instead of, well, the happiest moments of your life, which are always less than the most painful ones. I don't know if you can relate to this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we are always so ready to remember the painful stuff and not the happiest stuff. But let's get back to what I was saying. So basically, thanks to, well, thanks. So these people, yeah, will tell me all of that. And also, well, it was, I cannot say that it was only due to what they told me, because I was obviously like a very vulnerable and a very, let's say, weak, but not in a negative connotation. Yeah, I was like a weak girl. I was not very strong. I didn't have like a very strong attitude towards life, and this is also due to how my parents brought me, because I've been brought by two parents that let's say I've been brought in a dysfunctional family, and I think this is also like a very common trait in eating disorder sufferers, because basically it all comes down to how, like, the surroundings, of your childhood, of your young adult, like this, the adolescence, the period of adolescence. So it's not only about you, but it's about the world that surrounds you. And so basically, I always say that I started to develop like a second brain, which is the toxic brain of the eating disorder. And I think even better than me what I'm talking about, which I called Ursula, which is the villain of the Little Mermaid. I don't know if you
Ursula,
remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I started to develop this second toxic brain, which, day by day, week by week, and year by year became stronger and stronger. And she will tell me, if you lose weight, you're gonna be loved, you're gonna be worthy of respect, you're gonna be, everyone will like you. So the more you will look pleasant, like you will be pleasant looking, and you will be good looking, and you will be in a lean body, as skinny as you can get, that will be the moment where you can be loved and deserving of love, basically. So that was my worst, the worst point of the lowest point of my life. And I think a lot of eating disorders sufferers can relate to this point, especially if they are already they're already recovered. And I think maybe you can relate to what I'm saying.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. And so basically, all of the things that come from an eating disorder, so working like compulsively and excessively working out, obsessively counting calories, obsessively body checking, all of that stuff, that was me. And the thing is that what's funny, let's say funny, but it's not funny, but what's interesting, let's say, is that really nobody was able to say that I was ill,
Yeah.
because actually you start this journey because you think it's healthy for you, but actually it's like it backfires, because it's not, and also you deal with pain, with chronic pain. Physical exercise is good for you, and this, because you teach people how to exercise properly. But when you do it excessively, when you do it compulsively, it becomes hell. It's not, it's not good for your body anymore. And the thing is that the line between I'm doing exercise for my health and I'm doing exercise because I hate me is like, is so subtle, like you can't really,
It
you
is.
know, track it, mark it.
Mhm.
And that's why basically I got injured. I have two serious, like severe herniated discs, which basically prevented me from moving properly for a very long time. And the thing is that um, even though I got injured, so basically let's um, wrap it up again. So basically I got injured, but when I got injured, I was still very, very ill.
Mhm.
And so what does that mean? Let's say that you're a drug addict, and basically someone just take that addiction, take that drug addiction from you, and you can't have that drug anymore.
Mhm.
So basically I was getting mad because I couldn't exercise, because the people, like, sorry, not the people, the professionals would tell me, you can't move anymore, you can't do exercise anymore, you can't work out anymore. And I was still strongly ill. At that point of my life, I was going mad because basically my drug was taking me. Yeah, well, people were maybe probably took me away from my drug, my favorite drug.
Mhm.
And from that point, my injury, I basically, my life revolved around this injury. And I wasn't able to focus on things except in my injury. So basically, I was scared of doing anything that could affect my injury, my back injury. And also, I read from your experience that you experienced the same thing. Yeah,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you really think that is your whole life, that you're
Yes.
gonna be damned. How you say, like, yeah, that you are condemned to hell
Yeah.
with this injury.
Mhm.
And so basically, and I think you are aware of the fact that having an eating disorder is also having a compulsive, like obsessive compulsive behavior. So basically, so my mind was free of that compulsion to exercise. So
Mhm.
now my mind was basically in that moment, my mind got stuffed with thoughts about my injury. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So basically, if my mind couldn't obsess over exercising, my mind would obsess with, oh my God, I have an injury, I can't do anything. Like, I have to be still, I can't move anymore.
Right.
And this basically ruled, did you say rule? Yeah, ruled my life,
Yeah. Like,
you
yep.
know?
Dominate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. Yeah, it dominated my life for such a long time.
Mhm.
And until basically my recovery. And right now I am sitting, and
Mhm.
I couldn't be sitting like just a few years ago,
Yeah.
because sitting is not good for your back. And
Mhm.
it's right, because it's not wrong. But if your mind knows, like, and actually not just knows, but like, if your mind is dominated by the fact that your back gets hurt, if you're sat for a long time, then your back will hurt,
Mhm.
because your mind is connected with your body. And
Absolutely.
that's where I learned about mind body connection, and how powerful it is, to how your mind
Mhm.
basically is basically has even more power than your body, because you
Yeah.
can tell yourself stuff to believe in.
Mhm.
And basically it's like your body believes them too.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's so much. I've been writing notes as you're talking, and I'm like,
I'm
there's so
sorry.
I mean, everything you said, it's like, I can completely relate to much of what you said. And I think people listening will too. And the one thing I just want to go back to is when you talked about when you had the back injury, how it was almost like a drug that was being stripped from you because you couldn't exercise to the extent. And I completely relate to that. I remember going through my chronic back pain and I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? And now I can't run, I can't exercise, I can't hike. I like, what am I going to do? Like, and you get like anxiety just for the sheer fact that you can't exercise. And it may seem crazy to somebody who hasn't experienced excessive exercise or, you know, obsession over exercise, but for someone who's lived with that, it is literally like anytime you can't do that, you like feel like you don't have your coping mechanism. And
Exactly.
like, I'm sure you probably experienced this too, when you're excessively exercising, just decreasing it by 1 minute is a huge step. So when you say that you can, like, when you take it away from somebody, it's like you lost your identity. You feel
Exactly.
like, who am I? If I don't exercise compulsively, like, what do I do? Like you literally feel like you've lost your only comfort in life.
Exactly.
And so for your comparison of like literally comparing it to a drug, it really is true, as almost if it is being removed from you like cold turkey. And it's very scary. And unfortunately, what happens is that now you have that removed and now you're fearful of like what the repercussions are, because now you can't exercise excessively. And now that fear perpetuates the pain cycle. Now you're in more pain. Now you can't move more. And then that continues to perpetuate. And you get into this like vicious cycle of like pain and not being able to do what you want to do to cope with the eating disorder. And it's awful. It's an awful cycle to be in. And
It's awful. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And there's no other way to put it. It's just an awful, awful thing to experience.
Yeah, because actually it's like you want to be like maybe like reassured that
Mhm.
your body is probably okay, maybe you're going to go back to moving and exercising, but you will always need, I don't know if it's relatable, but I would always need someone to tell me that I could go back to exercising, because my mind will always go back to think, okay, you're never gonna exercise anymore. You're never gonna be back, doing even like yoga and Pilates and Pilates. I will always need someone to reassure me, because those toxic thoughts will always come to my mind. So it was a problem of how my mind would think. It was not about like the thing itself. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's that catastrophizing thoughts that like it's always
Exactly.
the worst case scenario. It's like, and that's that like very black and white like mentality that happens a lot of times with like an eating disorder. It's like it's either good or it's bad. That's it. There's no gray.
Exactly.
And it's
Exactly.
like, yeah. And when you have any kind of injury, you think the worst case scenario, like, oh, exercise is done for life. And unless you have somebody who's like been through it and has recovered and is in a better place to say, no, it's going to be okay. You'll be able to learn how to exercise in a healthy way. Like it's scary. Or like, am I ever going to, how can I ever incorporate this into my life without being obsessive about it and going down that path?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and what's interesting is that now I can do it in a healthy way. I can do Pilates, I can do yoga, I can have a walk without worrying about my back, because my injury and my back, my pain, basically is not the main thing that I think about every day, which I usually did in the past. So basically my injury would have the first place of my priorities of life, basically. And also, it's you can say the same for everything that's related to the eating disorder. So counting calories, obsessively again exercise, I don't know, like even it all comes down to your priorities and how they change because of your eating disorder. And my injury, basically getting to the first place, was still like a way of my eating disorder basically dominating me, because I was still mentally and strongly mentally ill. So everything changed then when I started my recovery process, which actually began 1 year ago in March 2021. But I also have to say that my addiction to exercise, was getting a little bit better, because I got injured in 2019. So that means that throughout these years, I was able to kind of reestablish a good relationship with exercising. But in general, I was in that phase of quasi recovery. Yeah, I think you know about this. Because you made those steps, the little steps of the first stages of an eating disorder recovery, but then you don't go forward. You're stuck in that phase, and you want to be stuck in that phase because you don't want to actually get out of your comfort zone completely, because basically recovering is about taking the leap into the unknown, because you were always so focused on controlling and making sure that everything was safe and under control, that you were doing everything for the sake of your body being lean and losing weight, and everything related to that. And when you lose that, let's say, how do you say, like when you lose this controlling pal that is inside your head, basically it's like you let go of everything that your eating disorder made you do. So you kind of let go of all of the let's say, how do you say, like the all of the things that your eating disorder told you to do, and that you were even able to let's say understand that it was the eating disorder that was telling you. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
And
so you realized was dominating your thoughts to control your behaviors.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I explained it in a right way, but my English, as I told you before, is not the best right now, because when you have this complex thoughts to sell, is always so complex to say this. But so yeah, basically everything changed when I committed to recovery, which also happened in a very specific moment of my life. So basically there was a time where I so let's say once again once I graduated, because it didn't come out of this conversation, but I graduated in the veterinary medicine, so I'm actually a doctor of veterinary medicine. I'm a vet. So first of all, if like for the people who are listening, well, I don't want to be a vet anymore. So I have committed to become a vet, and I've done, I've made such an effort to become a vet, but I understood that that path wasn't aligning with me, and I was feeling completely disconnected with what I was doing. And even though it sounds completely like that has nothing to do with my recovery, it actually has a lot to do with my recovery. Because if you have recovered from an eating disorder, or you are recovering from an eating disorder, you will understand that the person that was affected by that disorder wasn't you. That the eating disorder takes a lot from your identity, and you don't know who you are anymore. You will only know who you are after recovering. And so this awareness played a huge role in discovering that I didn't want to be a vet anymore. And this also comes from the fact that I was a perfectionist, an overachiever, which are also like a lot of traits, of eating disorder sufferers. And this also, impacted my uni life. I was the one that if I got 29 out of 30, we have this kind of grades of exams, so it's out of 30. If I got 29 out of 30, which is extremely good, I was not happy. I wanted to have that 30, and it's like it's basically you are never happy enough of who you are, of your achievements, of your goals, of everything that you have been able to reach, to achieve, because you don't see yourself as you who truly are, as you are, as you always want more from yourself. And
it's like you never feel good enough. Like no matter
exactly
what you do, you're never good enough.
Exactly.
And it's such a empty place to feel like, because you can literally like, get the best grades and then it's still not good enough. You can, lose more weight in your eating disorder. It's never good enough. So no matter what you do, it's a losing prophecy. You're always going to be on the losing end of it when you have that mentality. And it's a really tough place to be, because like, it just makes you feel just empty inside when you feel like no matter what I do, I'm never good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so basically I graduated in July, and in that period, like I was starting to lose myself, because I wasn't sure that I wanted to be the vet that I always wanted to be. And I say quote wanted to be, because I actually didn't know that I didn't want to be a vet. And so I stopped in that period. I stopped from everything. And this also is kind of goes against with having an eating disorder, because having an eating disorder means that you are always productive and doing something, and you cannot stop, because otherwise it means that you are just you're not having profit for something, like you are not for example, if we're talking about an eating disorder, you are not losing weight. So if you're not eating less, you're losing weight. If you're not moving and exercising enough, you're not lean enough. You have not enough muscles. It's always about the outcome of what you do, and not about like the thing itself. The process. It's always about what you can get from that.
Right.
So basically, I decided to stop, and I think that was the most necessary thing that I needed to do for myself, because in that period I decided to go for a volunteering experience, which basically I say that it saved my life. So I've been to South Africa for 2 months, and this was the turning point of my recovery, because I can tell you that 5 days after me coming back from this voluntary experience, I decided to commit to recovery. And it was not random. I connected the dots, like the points, because that experience taught me a lot, because it basically pushed me in a totally new, different world from my eating disorder world inside my mind. Like, it totally changed my priorities. It totally changed how I view the world, because experiencing those let's say powerful and strong situations, because especially if you live in a little, like a natural reserve where you are basically by yourself, and the things that you basically, the things that matter there are not like how you are, like what your clothes are, or like the makeup that you know use, but are like the water that maybe is not, like there's no water anymore, or maybe I don't know, like that the elephants have destroyed the pipes, and so the priorities changed totally. So I could immerse myself in a totally new environment, which I don't know, maybe rewired my brain in a totally different way. And this helped me with reaching new awareness about who I am, who I want to be, and what I want to pursue in my life. I understood that I was basically conducting the life of another person, and that I wanted to grab my life once again. So yeah, I wanted to be the master of my life. I didn't want someone else, even if it wasn't like physical, because it was inside my mind, to dominate my life. I wanted to be the master of my life. Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense.
Like find your authentic self and your purpose, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so just after 5 days, and I also have a tattoo of this date, because it meant so much to me, of when I started my recovery, because the turning point was basically realizing that I couldn't live this way anymore, that it was impossible and unsustainable to live with an eating disorder, either an eating disorder or your life.
Yeah.
They can't live together. They can't live simultaneously. Or, I mean, unless you want to live a miserable life, which you can do. And I did, for until the specific day that I committed to recovery. And what did I gain from that miserable life? I gained everything but like pride, not pride, sorry, but like happiness, joy. Yeah, I started to really realize what life was about. And so I began this journey, and it wasn't always happy. It was painful at times, and I think you know better than me, because you also treat people who are doing this journey like I did. But I can tell that it was the best decision that I've ever made in my life, because it really helped me realign with myself. I know what I want now. I know that everything that I experienced in my life, basically, it was someone else, like it wasn't me that I was doing those things. It was literally the sick side of me that was dominating my life. I'm sorry, I completely dominated this this chat.
No, there's so much you've said. I've been writing notes as you go, because I want to jump back to a few things, because no, I love hearing your story, because honestly, like like I said, there's so many things I'm like, oh yes, oh my gosh, I remember that. Like there's so many things you said, like I'm like, I lived that and I get it. Like, and I think for anyone who's lived with an eating disorder, you're like, yes, oh my gosh, that's like, you're speaking my language, because like unless you've been through it, you don't really truly understand how much it does dominate your life. Like your every single thought, it is like, you wake up and this is what you do, you go to bed, this is what you think about. Like, I mean, your mind is completely taken over by it, and you sacrifice a lot, unintentionally, by just handing your life over to your eating disorder. So there's so many things that you said. And kind of going back, you were just saying something, but what were you just saying? Oh, talking about, it's so interesting you talk about how like when you were going through your eating disorder, like that person is like, it doesn't even feel like it was you. And the last few people I've had on the podcast, everyone has almost said that same exact thing. It's almost like a stranger when you think about that person who was going through that, and then now yourself today. And it's like you almost have to like shed that shell of who it was, and you become your more authentic self. So I find it so interesting. Like there's definitely been a theme that people have experienced, and I myself have experienced that too. Like I think about that girl, because I was in my early to mid 20s when I was going through my eating disorder, and I'm like, I don't even know who that is,
Yeah.
And it is truly like when you just discover what it is to feel like you're recovered, and you go back to that. Like I have journals, and I'm like, who is that person? Like who wrote that? Like I feel so sorry for that girl, and it was me.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I just think that's just amazing to like that you've had that ability to kind of see yourself in a different light. And it's like for anyone who's gone through an eating disorder, you can see things so much more objectively when you're quote unquote on the other side of it. Like when you're going through it, you can't see what you should do because you're so ingrained and engrossed in what your eating disorder is taking from you. And at the time you don't even want to give it up because it's such a source of comfort, which is really tough too. When you talked about your pivotal point, that again is when you were talking about it, you're like, I don't want to live like this anymore. That I remember my moment too. I was sitting on the ground, and it was just an awful moment, but it was almost an awful moment that became a beautiful moment because I had that thought too. And did you feel like when you had that, because for me, I had it, but it wasn't like, okay, it's pivotal and now I'm good. It's like, it's not that, it's like when we talk about pivotal moments, it's like, okay, it's that one little ounce of like, okay, this is not going to be my story. And then you figure out how to make your story different from that point. Did you experience that where you're like, okay, this is not how I'm going to do, let me figure out how I can do it differently?
I remember exactly what that point looked like because I was desperately crying in front of my parents. And because, my parents knew about this, but they weren't aware enough of how deep and rooted that mechanism was and how it really affected my life deeply, because they just knew that I was fixated about food and about exercising, but it's not about that. It's about like it's a mental illness. So it needs to be cured as a mental illness. And it's not about the food that you're eating slash not eating, or the exercising that you do, but it's about the void, the emptiness that you have inside, and you're trying to basically how do you say, like to you're trying to find a coping mechanism, as an eating disorder is, to not think about those bad emotions, those negative emotions that you have, and because also maybe my parents didn't want to accept maybe that I was ill. And let's say that it also is due to their neglecting behaviors towards me. And so they I think they unconsciously, they didn't want to accept that they had a role in the development of my eating disorder. Because I think that's a very common thing that parents do. They kind of they have this avoidance behavior of, no, you're fine, you're well, like you're not bad, like you're totally fine, you don't have this. Because they couldn't accept that their daughter had this that this really this mental illness, because probably they wouldn't even like comfortable with the word mental illness. This such a huge statement, like, oh
It's
my
got a lot
god.
of stigma around it, and
Exactly.
hopefully it decreases. But yeah, it definitely, especially parent daughter role, it has to be somewhat uncomfortable to approach that.
Yeah, exactly.
And what you're
So
saying, oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna say what you're saying now, it just brought me back to something you said earlier when you were talking about the thoughts you had kind of growing up and a lot of the influences you had and those like subconscious thoughts that resonate in your head that you don't even
Mm,
realize, like that you can see more now, but the messaging that you tell yourself and how that really, you know, that subconscious mind, your subconscious mind develops between the ages of 0 and 7. So
mm,
things that you've experienced that you don't even realize are impacting your life in such a profound way, they don't always come out until later on. And then you realize like, wow, I've been thinking about this and this is how I think about myself or behaviors, or, you know, you're meant to feel a certain way. And that's the story that keeps playing in your mind until you actually bring awareness to it. And
yeah.
some of the hardest things is just recognizing what am I telling myself and questioning it. And that's the big thing, because so many of us live our lives just this is how it is, and we don't even question it because this is what we were told. And you know, especially when you're a kid, you know, it's like authority figures or, you know, influences that you just take as like they know better than I do.
Yeah.
And I think it's only until you realize that, you know, no, I know myself and anyone knows me.
Yeah.
and and then you question some of those things that you were told, and that's when you can start kind of opening up that dialogue even within yourself. But
Yeah.
that was I think a profound thing that you said, as far as how like the impacts of what you went through when you were younger and how it kind of played a role in what you went through as you grew
Yeah. Yeah. I think changing the self narrative is like such an impactful thing to do. And because really what people tell what you've been told by, you know, even social media, because we are not only like influenced by what our parents or our friends say, but
up.
also like social media
Yeah.
wants you actually, they actually want that it's in their interest that you are not happy with yourself, because they want to sell products, they want to sell you know, diet products, beauty products, and they aim at you not feeling good enough,
Mhm.
beautiful enough, because they actually want you to buy their stuff.
Right.
And when you become aware of all of this, then that's the turning point of all of your healing journey. Because really, I didn't know how society and beauty industries, diet industries um, were having such an impact on me until I read about it
Mhm.
and I understood all of the mechanisms behind it.
Right.
Because you know, I've read the Beauty Sick. I don't know if you've heard about it, the book. Yeah, it's I think I've left it, yeah, in Milan, because I live in Milan. I'm in my hometown now.
Oh,
So yeah, so I've
to Google it.
yeah, I left it there. And basically I also recommend you read it, because it's such a beautiful book, and it teaches you that the things that you think about yourself, you know, they don't come from your own mind, they come from what social media and also like the world in general tells you as a woman, like politically, socially, economically, like women have a different role as men have. And but this role is, you know, not as positive, because we also have to be the good mom, we also have to be the beautiful you know, employee that goes to the office and have, you know, makeup on and has the skirt and has and wears heels because she needs to be beautiful. And or I don't know, like, you know, a mom needs to be not only a mom but also like a worker, and the, you know, someone who cleans the room, the house.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
there's so many
very
roles and you have to be perfect at all of them.
exactly.
Not realistic. You're a human, you know, but yeah, it's almost like that perception of like we need to be machines. Like you need to do
Exactly.
all this perfectly, and it's just not realistic. And at the end of the day, the only one sacrificing is yourself, because
Yeah,
you can't be there for everyone if you're not there for yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about all the, like the social media, the products and everything, and they tell you that you're, they pick out the negatives so that they can capitalize on that. And that really goes down to the true wiring of our brains. And you talked about this a little bit earlier when you were talking about how there could be a million positive things, but you'll focus on like that negative thing. And it's really, I'm sure a lot of people experience that. It's actually how our brains are wired to look at the negatives, because the biggest thing our brain's trying to do is protect us. So things that are negative are threats to our system. So you're obviously going to pick out the threats that could compromise your protection of your system. So unless you make an active approach to rewiring your brain to not focus on all the negatives, then you're going to continue down that path. And that's the big thing, is that we're working against a system that's trying to protect us and was primitively wired like this. But our brain has evolved, but not to the extent that that doesn't become our focus. So it has to be like an active process of figuring out how you can replace those negative thoughts with things that actually serve you. And it's a tough process, but yeah, I mean, that's unfortunately is that there's so many things that are perpetuating that, because there's a profitable market when you don't think positively about yourself. And that's the really tough thing to counter.
Yeah, also I've learned it with my, because I also got treated for body dysmorphic disorder, which has a lot to do with, obsessive compulsive disorders. And, it has a lot of specific and peculiar traits of many different mental illnesses. And one of the traits of this disorder is the mind misreading, which basically is related to the negative self-talk, because basically you think that everyone is thinking that you are like not only a bad person, that maybe that you are fat, as we are talking about the eating disorders, or that basically everyone is looking at your legs. So I don't know, maybe you are walking down the street and people are around you, and their eyes really went to your legs or to your arms or to your face, and you automatically think that they are thinking negatively of you. But I've learned to question these thoughts, like what if they are thinking what a beautiful legs, or like in general they're just looking at you because you are in their like eye space, how you say, like you are just in front of them, and they just look at you because you are in front of them, they are not judging you. So all of this is a lot of awareness, because you think, oh well, you're not wrong, like actually I could just be in front of them and they are not even judging me, because they are not even seeing me, they're just looking at me, which is different. And so you always need to question what you think about yourself, and what even what others can think about yourself, because you can never know, like you can't read mind, that's why mind misreading. So that's also like a very interesting thing to learn.
Yeah, it's like, you filter out your environment as to what's reality for you. So if you're always thinking these negative thoughts about yourself, you're essentially going to filter out everything around you to have those same negative thoughts about yourself. And it's again, just comes down to the wiring of the brain. There's a structure of the brain called the reticular activating system. And when you set those intentions, like, so if you're thinking negatively, then you're going to filter out the world to see more negative, versus if you think more positively, or at least, not that like you want to just everything's positive, everything great, it has to be authentic. But when you are able to question some of those negative thoughts and start seeing the world in a different way, then now your brain actually starts to filter out things that are going to be more congruent with that. And that's a beautiful thing of it. And it's like, talking about like, gratitude. And I think sometimes gratitude gets this like, woo, okay, I'll just be grateful, but it truly has a science-based purpose of it, is like when you're grateful for the things you have, no matter how small they are, when you're grateful for it, you are setting your brain up to focus on that. And then now your brain starts filtering out its ability to see more things that you should be grateful for, that you can be grateful for. And then it starts sending you things that will serve you in a better way. But
Absolutely.
like, that's the whole thing, is like using your brain to its advantage. And I think sometimes too, like, I felt like this, I don't know if you felt like this with your eating disorder, but I almost viewed myself as my own worst enemy. Like my brain, I was like, I like hated the way I thought. I knew it was wrong, but yeah, it was like I kept going back to the same ways. And it's like when we view our system as actually serving us, and that it is like advocating for us and trying to protect us, and it's not our enemy, and how can we work together to live a beautiful life versus like
Yeah.
fighting against these thoughts, like that's when things can start changing. But if we're fighting against the thoughts and like coming down on ourselves, like if you have a negative thought and you're like, oh, why did I think that? I'm such an idiot. Why do I think that? And then you
Yeah.
pile on one negative thing after another, you're literally just creating a deeper pathway for you to think more negatively.
Yeah. There's no growth in going against
Yeah.
yourself, even though you're trying to get better at this. If you're always telling yourself, oh, you shouldn't be thinking that, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, it's
Yeah.
basically, it's counterproductive. You are how do you say, like, you're fueling the same system that you are trying to go against.
Right.
So it's, there's no escape from that. You
Yeah.
need to feel really and it's not about like just being spiritual and Christian, whatever. It's really about accepting who you are, because acceptance from acceptance comes growth, because you actually learn that you can change yourself without actually going against yourself, which
Yeah.
is also something that I've learned in this book that I'm reading, which is The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, which I recommend you. And
Yeah.
it's so amazing, because it actually talks about what we have just talked about. So like the attitude of like towards the world and how you interpret things, because if you interpret things negatively, then you will always interpret everything that happened to you negatively. So like, I don't know, like there's a lot of traffic and you are stuck in the traffic, and you will think about like all of the negative outcome that is that obviously comes from being in the traffic. But if you can't control this, and it's all of the things related to the controlling behavior of the eating disorder is related to this. But also I think like everyone would like to be in control of things, and when we let go of this control, then we understand that we are not omnipotent. We are not capable of controlling things. We are not able to change the things that are not changeable, like the traffic, like the weather, like people's opinions, like
Yeah.
how people react to you, how people's emotions. You can't control those stuff. What you can control is how you interpret those things, and how you can maybe change your attitude, but always in a very positive way, and not going against yourself, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And like you just hit on such an important point there, and that we can't control the external environment. There's always going to be stressors. No matter what you do, somebody will say something that will rub you the wrong way. There will be a situation at work or whatever that will make you feel stressed. But what we can do is control the internal environment. It's almost like if you think about your refrigerator
Yeah.
set a temperature and it stays at that temperature. It's regulated, and your food stays the same temperature inside, no matter what the environment is outside. It could be a 90-degree day, it could be a 30-degree day, but your refrigerator is staying at whatever temperature it's set at. And that's what we need to do too, is that we need to realize that we have to keep our internal environment steady and regulated, where it can be flexible to whatever's going on outside, but it goes back to that preset.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is that again, if we go out and try to stop everything, control everything, and stop the stressors, we're only going to be fighting a battle that's a losing battle. But the thing we can control is keeping our internal environment steady and able to adjust to what's going on in the external
Yeah.
environment.
And that's why I think recovering from eating disorder is hard, because basically you have learned to do your own journey, like aside everything else. You know, you are just you and yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not exposed to the world, because you actually understood that only by being isolated and with yourself, you could basically make your eating disorder alive. You wanted to keep your eating disorder alive because you want to, keep your eating and exercise behaviors. You want to keep them. You want to save them. You want to make sure that your life is not damaged, by anything else. You want to be in control of that bubble, that you are into. So that's why when you actually step into the world, it is so difficult, because you are not used to being in a changeable and always so how do you say, like, yeah, in a very changeable environment,
Variable.
like variable, yeah, exactly. So because you are not, you don't have the tools to basically adapt. That's the word, to adapt to those situations. You created this fake world of self-control, of being absorbed, self-absorbed. And as soon as you get out of this zone, you freak out. And that's why the first stages of your eating disorders, of your eating disorder recovery, are so important, because you really need to make sure to have a balance between the comfort zone and the growth and the fear zone, without getting to the panic zone, because it can really, like, messes up with your recovery if you're not careful enough to really make the right steps towards recovery, without bumping into like a completely new zone, which you are basically already scared of. So imagine if this fear was like 100% enhanced. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be careful to do these small steps when you are recovering, because you could be overwhelmed, and you can take even like a lot of steps back to come back to your comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, like, with eating disorders, your comfort zone is your eating disorder. So it's like, you have to expect that there is going to be some discomfort in that, because for your nervous system, again, is trying to protect you, and that's comfortable and that's safe, quotes safe, for your system. So when you try to change that, your system starts viewing that as a risky behavior, even though it's actually going to serve you in the long run. It's viewed as, this is a threat to our system. So everything feels uncomfortable about it. But any growth worthwhile and any change worthwhile is going to feel uncomfortable. So it's, when you're going through that, recognizing that this is normal to feel uncomfortable, that's a huge progress right there. But like what you talked about, you have to go at a pace that's right for you, because if you do try to make so many changes too quickly, it doesn't always work in the best way, because it's too much, and then you're going to want to get back to your comfort zone. So it's important, even more so, to be in tune with yourself, which, again, I don't know if you notice this with like your eating disorder, it's sometimes really hard to be in tune with what your needs are, because you're almost like numbed to what you feel like. You don't even know what is right for you, because you're so like removed from what you are. So it can be really challenging because of that, where you don't even know yourself well enough, because you've kind of numbed it down with the eating disorder for so long. So it's a process.
Yeah, and that's also like what's really interesting about it, like both really scary, but at the same time so interesting. And what's also interesting is that, for example, when I started my self-discovery journey, also because it's basically they go in parallel, I started to discover this different musical taste that I have towards, for example, rock music and metal music. And I was like, oh, like, am I really, like, do I really like this? Like, how didn't like this music before,
Yeah.
because I was so focused on my eating behaviors, of my exercise routines, of everything related to being perfect, to being this, to being that, that I didn't even know what my musical tastes were. So, like, I really started to listen to those, even like jazz music. And this is, it is not like a superficial thing to think about, because it really shows how you were manipulated by this eating disorder. Because if you realize that you actually love rock music and as I said before, metal music, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was actually within you, but you weren't able to find it because you were repressing all of your desires, all of your passions, all of your hobbies. Because so basically, also one thing that I like to say is that when you recover, you basically discover your authentic self, which is already within you. So it is not that you change, you don't change, you actually discover yourself. So it's a very interesting discovery, because you really understand that, maybe also the fact that you maybe you were so angry, and you had this you had the tendency to react in a very excessive way, in a very angry way. This means that there's a lot of energy in you, instead of, maybe about this, about people who have an eating disorder, who maybe are very low in their state. And so maybe they have a more introvert, energy inside, and they could be basically, let's say, develop interests in reading books, or like, I don't know, journaling. I don't know if it makes sense, but you have different energy. Everyone has a different energy, and maybe repressing this will come out differently as you have an eating disorder. So I have this energy that came out as anger and always yelling at people, but actually it's because I really have a lot of energy inside that wanted to spread in some way.
It's like when you mix up soda and then you let the cap off, it kind of just like comes out because it's been compressed and repressed, and then it just like lets itself out, and you're like, oh wow, there's a lot more energy that's been underneath. And kind of when you were talking too, it's like I don't know if you feel like this, but it's almost like the eating disorder is like dense fog. If you were walking and you can't really see much in front of you, you just keep on walking, and there's a beautiful scene that you can see, and then the sun comes out and the fog kind of dissipates, and that's your authentic self. But you never really saw that scene until you allow the sunshine to come in. And that's really what, if you can relate, that's what I felt like. It was just like I didn't really know who I was just going through the motions of life, and I couldn't even see what there was about me until I kind of allowed the sunshine to come in and allow the change to happen. But it's amazing how much you don't know about yourself until you start realizing that there's more to find out, because you're so used to going through the motions of living like that.
That's true. We talked about a lot, like different things.
But there's so many dimensions to it, because it impacts your entire life, and it's such a profound thing. And it's like, and for people who are going through it or have gone through it, you understand how much this impacts you, and you understand how many dimensions there are. And the big thing, people can read about in books, but until you know what it's like to be in that mindset and have these thoughts day in and day out, and to feel like you're not even living, you're just watching your life pass by. And even just after you're kind of out of an eating disorder, like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I had a lot of like regret for a while, because I, went through college, didn't have a lot of friends, because all I did was like, go through my eating disorder. And then even after college, like, I missed out on like family activities, missed out on social things, missed out on, quote unquote, the best years of your life, because I was so encompassed by my eating disorder. And that's a recovery in itself, just going through those regrets of like, okay, that's time. That time is gone. I can't get it back. And how can I move forward and live my life in the fullest way now? And there's just so many stages to it. That's
Yes.
why there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I absolutely like see all of what you've gone through, because actually there was a phase of anger towards myself, because I basically regretted not being present in specific moments of my life, of basically living my life to the fullest, because I was so absorbed with my eating disorder. But I also had a lot of anger towards the people that maybe have contributed to my eating disorder. But then you actually understand there's that maybe it is not even their fault, because maybe it basically their issues also come from their past, and you cannot blame them for this. This you can just accept that, like, that where you are now and what you can do for the future, like for your future self, and the steps that you want to take from now. So you can reflect, and you can be sad about not having done that thing, not joining your friends doing something, because we know that eating disorders always like keep you in this bubble, and you don't do things. Basically, you want to be the most isolated that you can be, because you want to be safe in your comfort zone, as we said before. But then when something clicks in your mind and you start recovering and everything else, you really regret not having done those things. But the best thing that you can do is simply look forward, like to just think about all of the things that you can do by now. And because life is long, and you can feel your life as much as you want with the things that you love. There's no one that is stopping you from this. The only one that is stopping you from this is you. And that is also comprehensible, because you definitely are a little bit more fearful and scared if you lived with an eating disorder for a very long time, because fear and anxiety and worriness is basically wired in your brain. Like, your brain is trained to feel fear and anxiety even before things happen. So it's about rewiring your brain, as your rewiring health, as your podcast says. So because basically you really need to change the synapses. Do you say synapses? In your brain to to live the life that you want to live, because you need to change your attitude towards life.
Yeah, beautifully said, everything you just said there. And it really comes down to figuring out that you're the creator of your life, and you can make choices and decide where your life wants to go, and have that ability, and you have the power to change whatever your reality is. That's always able to change through your brain, and that's always capable of rewiring. So there's a lot of beauty to that, and just take steps towards doing that. So for anyone who wanted to connect with you, where can they find you, and how can they connect with you?
So I have an Instagram page, which is at Heal with Martina. So I am, I'm posting everything related to my eating disorder, my recovery, my I hope my future career as a coach, because I actually want to attend a course for becoming a somatic coach, which is basically a coach that helps you to work with your body, with breath work, and a lot of exercises to reconnect and realign with your body and your spirit. And yes, because I think from my background story and my past traumas, I've learned a lot, and I really want to be of any help for the people who maybe are struggling with the same things that I did. And so yeah, that's my page. I hope you're gonna have a look maybe,
Yeah.
and if you like it, maybe you can follow me, and I don't know, like just chat with me also. Like you don't have to follow me. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put the link to all your contacts in the show notes for anyone who's listening. So that way you can definitely connect with Martina and follow her story, because just what you shared today, and I've seen a lot of what you post on Facebook, it's very inspiring. So
Yeah,
thank you for
thank
sharing
you.
your story, because it really is. And the thing is about eating disorders is that a lot of times feel like alone in it. So it's like when you are brave enough to share your story, it really is so therapeutic for people to realize that what you're going through is not just you. There's a lot of people who understand what you're going through, and you're never alone with
Yeah.
it. So thank you for sharing your story. It's very inspirational, and everyone definitely make sure you contact or follow Martina, and definitely
Thank
get in
you.
contact with her. And like I said, I'll share that in the show notes. But thank you
Thank
so
you so
much
much.
for joining me. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we could talk for days about this because there's so many layers to it. But I genuinely appreciate you sharing your story and being brave enough to do that. And hopefully it'll inspire somebody to make those little changes that make all the difference. So thank you.
Yeah, I loved chatting with you. It was such a beautiful experience to, to talk about this, and in even like a very conversational way. We jumped from a topic to another, so it was very, very fun and
Oh, good.
interesting. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you again. I really appreciate you being on here, and thank you. And for anyone who is listening, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and definitely leave any questions or comments you have for us. We would be more than happy to answer those for you, and connect with us, so you can just continue the journey. So thank you again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.